So this next piece is by Die Van Hoek. Again, this is a continuation, or this is called Die Van Hoek. This is a continuation of what we were talking about in the last review for 235. And this is by Frank Stella. So this is making reference to the part of the song, part of an anthem for the Nazi Party in Germany. The flag that it's referring to is the Nazi flag. So you have association with Jasper John's flag, associations with sort of decontextualizing things and making them into something that removes a step of understanding so that there's a level of critical thinking that needs to be engaged in order to figure out what the content of the piece is. So in this sense, that's what is meant by the notes inside of this, saying that Stella's ironic purpose was to destabilize the idea of meaning itself. So this is the lovely Flower in the Wind by Agnes Martin. This deals with the idea of mark making and patience and time and the meditative nature of work that goes into art. So anytime, I'm sure that you have experienced this when you're really getting into something that you're doing that's engrossing through the rote nature of it. This is the kind of work that Agnes Martin is referring to, and she's also, because of her religious background, has this meditative notion of the counting, right? So this is referring to just how many flowers there are, right? So the idea of the number of these things as well is an idea that's important. This is Donald Judd's Untitled, 1968. So these were manufactured. Donald Judd, again, has a specific object piece that he writes, which accompanies the work that he does. He's thinking about manufacturing. He's thinking about the removal of the artist's hand. So he's challenging in this way Greenberg's ideas and saying that formalism doesn't even need the artist's hand in order to be effective or beautiful. So this is completely mass-produced. He comes up with the idea and then someone else makes it. And in this sense, these boxes could be produced to infinity. This is House by Rachel Whiteread, and it's concrete. And basically what she did was to take an old Victorian house and fill it with concrete and then remove the house from the exterior of the piece. So it shows, it emphasizes what's inside, being the thing that sort of builds the house, and a difference between the intimacy of the interior versus the exterior that's shown to the world. Okay, so, sorry. So now we're going into some more abstract expressionist work. This piece that we're going to look at is Untitled by Willem de Kooning. This is using household paint to create the image. It's referring to Jackson Pollock. It's also referring to mark making. As you can see, there are some specifically male ideas. So this is male. It's sort of the great American West, artist as cowboy, et cetera, et cetera. The next piece is Untitled by Mark Rothko. So this is what we're talking about in relation to color field painting. There is, the emotive is being emphasized over the narrative. The next piece is Civilisation Atlantique by André Fougeron. This is sort of socialist realism. There are contained in it anti-American allusions, a couple of which are listed here. You can see within the image that there's a lot going on. If you're to do an analysis of this, I would begin by talking about some of the imagery that's present, that's associated with America. Again, the American GI, cars, industrialization, tenement housing, sort of the influence in death that has happened as a result of American intervention in a lot of ways since the Cold War. And again, I think if you look at the date on this, 1953, this is after World War II. This is around the time, I think, when the US is involved in Korea and has really taken up as a mandate sort of this idea that they're going to go throughout the world and oppose communism in various countries. Full Fathom 5 by Jackson Pollock. This is one of the first paintings in which Pollock used his drip technique. Full Fathom 5 actually refers to a line of Shakespeare, and he's talking in the work. Shakespeare's talking about King Triton. And so you have, through his palette, he's making reference to the thing that he also references in the title. So this idea that people have about Jackson Pollock not being referential in what he does, there's still narrative there. There's still sort of a Jungian exploration of emotion. Clement Greenberg dismisses this because he wants to put Pollock's work in service of his own ideas about art and what art should be doing. So just because we interpret something one way doesn't mean that that's the artist's intention. It also doesn't mean that the artist's intention, it sort of de-emphasizes what the artist's intention is, right? So that's something that happens to poor Pollock. But here you see there's little flecks of orange inside of here. There's the seafoam green. And if you read the passage from Shakespeare that has Full Fathom 5, which you should look up on Google, you'll see those references to those colors inside this passage. So he really is thinking about these ideas. This is Untitled from 1960 by Henri Michaud. And Michaud was a poet and a visual artist, and you can see within his work sort of the calligraphic nature. So the mark making that he does references writing. This is Manhattan by Wols, who is also Alfred Otto Wolfgang. This piece is sort of map-like. It's making reference to the island of Manhattan, but it also has a sort of frantic nature that makes reference to the technique used by other informal artists. So there's a sort of bodily association that happens through the mark making. This aspect of the map almost appears to be a mouth, etc. The next piece is Portrait of V.I. Lenin by V. Cheregonovich in the style of Jackson Pollock, the second from 1980. And in this piece is speaking about the dichotomy between communism and capitalism through the juxtaposition of socialist realism with abstract expressionism, which happens during the Cold War, right? Remember, we talked about in class that Alfred J. Barr, he really brings people like the abstract expressionists through the MoMA, does a tour of Western Europe in order to get people excited about the freedom that happens inside art in the capitalist economic systems. And so the mark making is referencing Jackson Pollock, but at the same time you have this realistic portrait. So here's like the eye and the eyebrow and the nose and the mouth of Lenin. So it's talking about that dichotomy, which is emphasized in the first chapter of your book. The next piece is Blue Veil by Lewis Morris. It's poured paint and tilted canvas, inspired by Pollock, much lighter hand. Then you have At 5 in the Afternoon by Robert Motherwell. That's this piece. So you have sort of stark contrast, organic shapes. He's obviously looking and thinking about some of the things that people like Jackson Pollock and William de Kooning are doing. This is George Baselitz, Die Grossnacht im Eimer, which is from, so Baselitz is from Germany. This is German Expressionism, sort of. So it's what's happening in German art in reaction to sort of Germany in post-World War II. And so you have a much more bodily, paint-like application. He's talking politically about the idea of covering up things that happened during World War II, and the people who are left, who are not necessarily tried under or as Nazi criminals, but still had a hand in some of the goings-on that happened during World War II and sort of the reaction to that. When we come back, in relationship to some of the things that we have talked about in class, I'm going to be showing you guys a trailer to Beider Meinhof, which will talk about some of those things which arose during the 1960s as well. But so he's rejecting fascist art and the images that were endorsed under social realism in East Germany as well. And this is Joseph Beuys' Coyote. Again, Beuys locks himself in a gallery with this coyote, and the performance is filmed. And Beuys thinks of himself as shaman. Hopkins says that he sort of decontextualizes Duchamp, but I don't know if he's completely right about that. I think that Beuys is interested in some ideas that maybe American artists are less interested in. Again, a lot of American art is sort of about this manifest destiny and dealing with this idea of pushing capitalism and democracy into the rest of the world. And they've really come at the end of World War II and sort of asserted their dominance as a world power. But at the same time, they, other than Pearl Harbor, the effects on American land were not present. I mean, the soldiers went over to Europe and to Asia and to various other places, but they didn't. Nobody came here. Nobody set foot on American soil and attacked people. And so the war was not present in the everyday reality of people who were just living day to day. It was only the soldiers who had the effects of the war. And so you have all these artists in Europe who witness devastation on a daily basis, who are making a very different art that's about the body, that's about sort of the psychological effects of war, which is not happening in America. Okay, so then we have Yves Klein. Again, Yves Klein has young, beautiful women. He paints their bodies. They roll around on canvases. Yeah. This is Yves Klein's Single Day newspaper. So it's incorporating photograph caption, the painter of space who hurls himself into the void. So this emphasizes the so people think that photography is documentary, and it emphasizes the fact that it is not. The painter doesn't hurl himself into the void. He hurls himself very safely and lands, and then puts these two photographs together to make it look as if he has hurled himself to his death. This is in Limbo. There's an association again of body here. Again, this is post-World War II non-European art, post-World War II European art. There's this idea of these different body parts that are broken, that are waiting to be activated by being put together. They're in like a coffin-like stance. They have to do with mass production, but they're unusable. All these different aspects, again, are emphasized. And this is Germaine Richier's L'Orage, or The Storm. So she sort of used the masculine qualities of the bronze to give a rugged scar.